Yes, thanks for staying with us on the Sports Show. Well, KG, we know Saturday was not a good day for the Adelaide Crows.
Disaster.
Yes, well, our next guest was sitting in the front row of the first tier with his lovely wife, Mandy,
Why didn't he have his
watching the
boots
game.
on?
That's probably a good question. We welcome Tyson Edwards to the show. Tyson, thanks for coming in, mate.
Thank you. Yeah, wasn't the best day.
Mate, when you're sitting there and you're watching it unfold, is there a moment for you when you could see the momentum shift and you thought, we're in a lot of trouble?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of trouble. Just before half time, it was probably 6-7 minutes, somewhere around there just before half time. You could sense a bit of a momentum change. And it just didn't seem like we had an answer to stop them at that stage. And then I actually saw you at half time, bumped into you and said, I hope Richmond don't get going early in this third quarter to get the crowd into it.
They did that.
So you're the Jonah?
And that's exactly what happened. That straight away, Rewalt took a really nice mark, and then we just didn't seem to have an answer after that.
Although traditionally the Crows' third quarter's been pretty good for them. So I remember when we were talking, you said they're good when they come out and they need to come out, need to be assertive early. And you're right, they weren't. And then once the horse bolted, there was never a chance of coming back, was there?
Yeah, that was the thing. There was just no answer, and the boys have had an answer all year during games, during quarters, during breaks. They've been able to find a way to change the momentum or get it back, or at least get it level, and they just didn't seem to be able to do that on the weekend. And full credit to Richmond, they were very good right from the start.
They were.
So that they've been able to maintain their consistency over the whole game, but the Crows just didn't seem to have an answer at all.
Tyson, I must confess, I thought Don Pike may have changed things up in the third quarter. And when we sort of lost momentum, things were going Richmond's way, and they were very good. I thought perhaps more work could have come out from the coaching box. And I want to be constructive, but I thought that could have happened.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I
is.
I think with the group they've had this year, they've been able to respond as I just sort of explained, but without making many changes. So he's probably sitting there going, okay, well, we know what they need to work on. We've given them the tools here, and let's just wait and see, wait for it to happen. But yeah, I guess when you're sitting there and nothing's really happening, a few people have said that to me as well. Why didn't we change? And I'm sure they would have changed a few things that we don't notice that they do internally. But not a lot of positional changes, and I think there was just too many players down on the day.
But how do you explain that?
Yeah, well,
Tyson?
it's hard. It's a hard one.
After all the year that the Crows have had, to have so many players down on the given day, grand final day, how do you try and explain that?
Well, they'll be trying to do that right now, I would have thought. That's the thing. Like, they probably had 4 or 5 good players, and then there was a big drop off. You try and find the rest from there. So disappointing when they've been so good all year and so consistent and relied on the team. There hasn't been a lot of standouts. Everyone's sort of done their bit. And to have that many players down on the worst possible time it would be exactly what they're trying to work out right at this moment.
Tyson, you've played in those games though where the other team's got a lead and you're trying to chase and you're putting in a huge effort. Yeah. So I reckon there's been some criticism that the effort of the players wasn't there. So I've got to refute that, saying I'm sure the players were giving everything they got, just that when you're chasing, it just looks like you're not.
Yeah.
Is that a fair call?
Yeah, absolutely. You do excel more energy when you're defending all the time. And it does wear you out a lot quicker. When you've got the ball, funnily enough, you don't use as much energy. So, and with so many trying to do that and so many not getting the ball going the other way, and Richmond, to their credit, were very, very good. I think we've got to give them some real credit for how much pressure they put on our boys. And you just didn't see that ball movement that you would normally see from the Crows. And that's got to be credit to Richmond, because I almost thought at stages during the game that Crows were trying to go too quick with the ball, trying to get the game going, get the ball over the top, etc. And maybe they just needed to stop a little bit, get back off the mark, because there's more room at the MCG to use, so you can actually open up the ground a little bit by taking a little bit more time, as silly as it sounds. So, but I'm sure they all tried all those things, and they just didn't work.
Without stirring the pot, were you disappointed with the lack of, at times, physicality in the game?
Oh, yeah.
By the Crows?
I did say to my wife at one stage, I said, we need someone to do something here at the moment.
And nobody did it.
Without being stupid about it.
You can't be stupid.
Just see some sort of effort or contest or
correct. Knock a bloke over.
To go, and I think that's why the effort thing, or they're not quite as trying as hard as they normally, that comes out. That's what, because we're all sitting there hoping and waiting and wishing.
Because I was saying to myself, someone's got to do something here. Someone's got to stop Richmond's momentum and do something. Yeah. But that didn't happen.
Easier said than done at times.
I understand.
Hard to change the momentum in a game. That's one of the hardest things to do. Basketball, you get a timeout, you get to stop it, and hopefully that stops a little bit of the momentum. In the AFL, you can't until quarter time, but you can push numbers back, which I'm sure they did. You can try and even up the numbers all over the ground, because they looked like they were getting outnumbered almost everywhere. The ball would go into the forward line and they'd look like they'd have crummers in there,
Yep.
would be outnumbered. We get it going the other way and they're outnumbering us in our forward end, their defensive end. So it was just, there wasn't a lot of answers and we just couldn't find a way.
Mate, I spent a lot of time around the AFL coaches and you get the lingo of kick it to grass.
Yep.
It almost looked like Richmond were more bring it to grass. So in the contest, they were quite happy to not try and get the high mark as opposed to knock it. Then the mosquito fleet can come through, pick it up, quick handball and they're away. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, well, I guess with their makeup of their forward line, with only really one tall or maybe a resting ruckman there as their second tall, they've got on the whole year pretty much they had that small forward line and it worked quite well for them. So that's a fair I guess assessment, and that's what they needed to do really, because they can't take those contested marks as much as some other teams.
Will Pikey have a one-on-one situation with the players now, Tyson?
All coaches are a little bit different. Some do one-on-ones with everyone.
What would you do?
I don't know whether I'd do it with everyone. I'd definitely spend a lot of time with my senior players and just try and work out, how are you feeling?
Yep.
What were the rest of the players like? They'll have all their different meetings. I'm sure the players will have some input into the day and the week and the final series and how it all went. And they'll assess every little bit of it. Even the trip to the Gold Coast, they'll assess that. And
The stare?
the stare, yeah. Oh,
Fairly.
that's not a.
Be mountain out of a mole.
I know you're not a big rat.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it. That's not going to affect
Did
our
you like the movie
play.
Gladiator, mate?
Oh, yeah, but we're talking about a game of bloody footy.
They won the stare off and they won the toss. They just didn't quite
Didn't win the
win
game.
They didn't get the ball.
No, mate, you touched on it before. The MCG is a bigger ground and it takes a while to get. Richmond, and again, I'm just looking at, because there'll be a whole range of reasons, but I'm trying to defend the Crows a little bit here. Richmond played 11 of 13 games, 11 wins, 13 losses at the MCG this year. The Crows played there 3 times. So the space, the size of the crowd, it all makes a difference.
Yeah.
You've had success on the ground, but the first couple of times you played on it, is it different?
Oh, it definitely is. And with 100,000 people there, it's different again. And I think with grand final days, it's really hard to communicate with anyone, even
noise,
3 or 4 metres away because of the noise. So that's something to get used to as well. But it is a big advantage playing on your home deck more often.
It's not a cop-out, you don't think?
No, I wouldn't use it as an excuse, because as a player, even though I didn't play there a lot, I wanted to play there as much as I could because of the history and the grand final days there, and everything that's gone on there. So you won't use that as an excuse. But if Geelong had their home final against Richmond, would it be a totally different story?
Yes, but it's never going to happen, is it?
Yeah, no, that's right. But it is a bit of an advantage because you're used to it, you're comfortable.
Yep.
I'm sure if the Crows played Richmond at Adelaide Oval in the grand final, that's a bit of a different story again. But if you're good enough, you'll win anyway.
If you had a best of 3, hypothetically, just for a moment, there was a best of 3, who do you reckon would win the next game?
Well, you think the Crows would respond pretty quickly. And then who knows after that?
Yeah.
Then it becomes.
Could you see it ever get to that? Could you see the AFL get to best of 3?
I think it's too physical.
Yeah.
It's too long a season. It would have to shorten the season.
Yeah.
For that to happen. So and finals are more physical, although the game on the weekend probably didn't seem as physical as
I didn't reckon it was, Tom.
Yeah, it was a bit more
And
open.
that's the one area that frustrated me with the Crows.
Although I guarantee you, mate, if you went down the change room after the game, there would have been a lot of fatigued blokes down there with lots of
I
ice packs going
understand that,
everywhere.
but there's ways of being physical and ways of not being physical. And there were, look, I know it's easy to be critical, but there were contests where if you didn't get the ball, you take the body, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, there is a few of those. I'm sure the boys, if they had their time again, and hopefully, that they give themselves another chance, because you learn so much from any lost game, but a grand final you do review over and over again without even trying to as a player, as a coach. I'm sure in your coaching career you would have reviewed a grand final loss or a finals loss a lot more, even without trying to do it. So. They'll certainly do it, and if they've got some real character about them, which I'm sure they have, they'll respond. We all hope they will, but it takes a lot of work to get back there. So it's not as if they can just turn up again next year and it'll happen.
Exactly
Well,
right.
mate, the expectation at Harris Real Estate is pretty high. What would be the expectation after a performance like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's going to be a few changes by looks. Playing personnel over the seat looks like Lever's gone, so he's a big loss.
Cameron, will he go or will stay?
Yeah, well, that's another one. He's got some real outside speed, which
He has, when we need it.
important in games, insides these days. So
David Teague's out of the coaching
David
box.
Teague's just
Josh Franco into the box.
Apparently, Josh Franco's coming. I've heard Podsy Adderley might be moving. So there's already some
Here we
changes
go.
going on. But as far as assistant coaches go, I think for a head coach, it's a good thing to get some fresh ideas in. Now that group probably hasn't been together that long as far as Pike and the rest of the guys, but No, they'll come back. It should steel them. It should make them want to work out why and how to get back there.
When
again.
you think it was all set up beautifully, and it just didn't happen on the day.
Mate, if it was just that simple, everyone would be doing it. Mate. Any chance for KG in the coaching box? Someone that's not a motive? You wouldn't have thought, would you?
The game.
No, I can't. I went and watered the bloody garden.
Hey, Tyson, appreciate you coming in, mate.
No,
Stay with us. Still plenty to come on the show.